Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, just a little over 2 weeks away from actual Sun Devil football. It's almost here. The Sun Devils are back down from Camp T. It's getting close.
It is becoming real. Tremendously real, very real. I think when you get to that point where you get through Camp T, that's when it really accelerates. And it's like, man, this thing's happening. And there were successes up there at Camp T, quite a bit to talk about. We'll break down some of the position breakdowns, things like that. Yeah, it gets realer and realer by the day, and so that makes us do our job and tell all y'all about it.
Yeah, last Saturday was certainly notable with perhaps the biggest separation so far yet in the quarterback competition. But Joe, last Saturday has nothing on what's to come this Saturday.
Big Saturday coming on up. We've been talking about it for several weeks. We talk about things getting real. It's about to get real fast. Saturday, August 17th, 100 Mile Brewing Company, 690 North Scottsdale Road in Tempe, near Scottsdale, and the 202. Again, we've been talking about it. You know what's happening. Our live show, our second ever live show at 100 Mile Brewing Company. There's going to be free parking, which, you know what, when you get kind of like the age that I'm at, that determines if I'm going to go somewhere. So that's a check in the right box, if you know what I'm saying. We're going to do raffles. We're going to do giveaways. Our awesome sponsors are hooking us up with some stuff we're going to hook you up with. Great food, great drinks. Brad and I will be there, of course. But the best part about it, the highlight of the evening, the main event of the day, is our incredible guest list, which we have locked in. It's going to start with the man himself, voice of the Sun Devils, a dude that I know fairly well, and y'all know quite well as well. Of course, the legend, Tim Healy, will be joining us to talk Sun Devil football, looking ahead to what I believe is his 27th season, if I'm not mistaken. A new addition. If you don't catch this one, it'll be a strong performance. We might just have to send you right to jail, if you know what I'm talking about. Sun Devil legend, Jalen Strong. Of course, of Jail Mary fame, but a lot more than that. One of the best wide receivers ever to don the maroon and gold. He will be joining us. He's got some great stories, and he's going to tell you what he's involved with these days as well. And then, of course, the headliner of it all, Sun Devil Athletics Athletic Director Graham Rossini is going to be joining us, and they're all going to take your questions in addition to chatting with Brad and me. We're getting the whole thing started around 3 p.m. on Saturday. It's going to go to about 5:30. A little bit's up in the air because we're going to do some Q&A and some audience interaction things. That determines how long it goes. So just set aside that time. Come join us. Come have a great time. The guests that we have want to get involved and talk with you, get to know you, and just share that Sun Devil spirit, again, as we're here inching our way, speeding our way, quite frankly, to the 2024 season. So once again, to sum it up, this Saturday, August 17th, 100 Mile Brewing Company at Scottsdale Road in the 202, 3 p.m. Get there, come have some food, some drinks, let us do our thing and entertain you the best we can.
And some of the proceeds will benefit Sun Devil Family Charities. So you'll be doing some good. So it's your civic duty to come down and hang out with us and enjoy all the great stuff. That's going to be happening at 100 Mile Brewing Company this Saturday afternoon. All right, Joe. That said, let's talk some football. It's going to be a really interesting show here because we're going to break down. I feel like at this point, coming down off the hill from Camp Tontozona, we have about 20 of the 22 starting jobs on the offensive and defensive sides.
And just a few weeks ago, there were 3. You know what I mean? A week or two, that Camp T, important stuff, as it always is.
Yeah, Kenny, maybe wanted to light a fire on some guys. Don't let anybody get complacent. But yeah, I feel right now there's about 20 of the 22 set. So we'll break that down. We'll also talk to a few of the Sun Devils who have really made their mark in fall camp so far. Starting off with quarterback Sam Leavitt, had a great showing on Saturday in front of the fans at the Camp Tontozona. We'll also be hearing from defensive lineman Justin Wodtly, making his name felt on the line, inside, outside. He's doing it all. And Malik McClain, a newcomer, who we were really excited to see what he was able to do. Got off to he wasn't able to participate in the early part of fall camp. Now hitting the ground running and making up for some lost time. So a lot of good stuff that we'll be hearing from that trio of Sun Devil impact players. But Joe, before we dive into all that, some notable news: a new upcoming, or soon to be member of the Sun Devil Hall of Fame.
Yeah, ASU today. Here we're recording this on Tuesday evening. Earlier, Arizona State Athletics released the class of 2024 for its Hall of Fame, and that's always been, just kind of having an interest in the history of Sun Devil football, Sun Devil athletics. That's always a time of year that's always interesting to me to see who gets the nod. There are some players, Keith Poole, that I think should be in that are not. So it's just always kind of an interesting thing. The selection, at least from football now, and it's not like they don't have to make a pick from every sport every year, but typically football, of course, is going to get at least one entry every year. Very, very deserving. Of course, the back-to-back recipient of the Pac-12 Pat Tillman Defensive Player of the Year Award in 2012 and 2013, a consensus All-American in 2012. That, of course, being Will Sutton. Man, his career was something special, especially that, of course, he won that prestigious award twice, but that 2012 season, to me, that's right up there with like Derek Rogers in 96, Terrell Suggs in 02, as far as just the most dominant defensive line play I've ever seen at Arizona State. So he is someone that is completely deserving of this recognition. Great guy as well, just an all-timer, very, very deserving. So all the congratulations in the world to Will Sutton and his loved ones to be able to, enjoy this sort of experience.
Really cool to see that. Yeah, that season and those couple seasons really. But that, you mentioned that 2012 was just so fun to see how especially coming off the disappointment of 2011. But just kind of the jolt of electricity, the life that 2012 season and his performance, really was able to get the Sun Devils, the program kind of, back on some good footing. And obviously, we know what happened in the 2013 and 14 seasons as well. And it's probably somebody that will be joining us here in the, at some time to talk about that honor and reminisce a little bit about his career.
We are working on it. We're going to make that happen. We always like to get those guys to talk about it, like we had Sean McDonald last year and, others that we've had throughout the years. It's just a really cool thing because, man, it is something interesting that Brad and I have experienced over the years doing this podcast is, you have these legendary Sun Devils who in our eyes and minds and probably the same for y'all watching and listening. I mean, they're legends, but a lot of guys wonder what their legacy is like. They wonder if they're forgotten when their time is gone. And even if it's after just something like 10 years and a guy, I'm not saying that, Will Sutton said this to me, but we've had these conversations with former, Sun Devil athletes. Again, ones that I say, it's like, my goodness, that's whoever it is. So it's always a very, touching honor for these guys to be inducted into ASU's Hall of Fame. I know some particularly who are not yet in it that it's like a life goal of theirs. So this is not something that's taken lightly whatsoever. It is a major achievement for these athletes, something that is very well earned, very well deserved, and something that is not just, another trophy that they put in their case and then go about their day. These are Sun Devils by heart. They come from that time of college football where you only attended one college, and it's where you are. You're a Sun Devil for life in these cases. So I'm sure this means one heck of a lot to Will, and really thrilled for him to be able to be in that spotlight again, get that attention again. Because again, what he did, especially at a time where ASU needed to bounce back, he was just a guy that you'd like to have on your team every single year. So once again, big time congratulations to Will Sutton and everybody that supports him.
Was it 2013's media day where we were at ASU and we sat down with Will and Carl Bradford?
It was, and I missed the boat because honestly, that was just a couple days. The anniversary was just a couple days ago. It popped up on my Facebook memories, and it was like it's a picture that I have of us sitting in one of like the coaches' offices. With both Will and Carl, and we had the good old, y'all don't know about it, but the bulb, the microphone. Let's just say this, over the 10, 11 years since that point, the technology has upgraded significantly in terms of how we operate this podcast. Back then, it was a little different deal.
Yeah, it's good time. So, yeah, congratulations, Will. We'll get you on the show, get you back on the show here in short order. All right, let's dive into what this Sun Devil roster, this Sun Devil depth chart looks like right now, on the heels of Camp Tontozona, as we're having about another week and a half or so of fall camp before the page really turns to game week, and when the Sun Devils are going to prep for Wyoming. Starting off at quarterback, I think this is a position that is probably pretty settled right now. After what we saw on Saturday in front of the fans in that big-time scrimmage situation, I think it's pretty clear that Sam Leavitt has been the clubhouse leader, but I think that performance really provided some separation. Now, I think the case for Sam Leavitt right now is that he just, I think, is more comfortable in the offense. He makes good plays. Now, and especially what we saw in practice today, he's a guy who can use. He's not just a pocket passer. He's got some serious wheels on him as well. Perhaps not to the level of a Jeff Sims, but I've been really impressed by his resiliency. The one practice so far in fall camp in which he was relegated to the second team, he's really been he responded with his best practice of the spring, or excuse me, of the fall. And even in the scrimmage on Saturday, second play from scrimmage, a fumble, loss, recovered by Clayton Smith. He rebounds and throws 2 touchdown passes, runs for another, and leads a very efficient offense all day. He's a guy who is able to stretch the field with the deep shots, and developing the chemistry and rapport with Jordan Tyson. Jeff Sims just so far is not there. When the light was on Saturday, 2 picks and out of the first 3 drives, a bunch of punts, they just really wasn't able to get the offense moving at all. Now, there are flashes in practice that shows off his tremendous arm strength, his speed. On Monday's practice, he had a 60-yard bomb to Derek Eusebio. On one play, very next play, took it around left end, 60-yard rushing touchdown, outran the defense. But between that is a whole lot of inconsistency, and I think when you have an offense that just, you want to make sure that you don't screw up too much. Sam Leavitt has been not just the default choice by not screwing up so much, but he's been making a number of big plays in his own right.
Yeah, Saturday up there at Camp T definitely had a separation Saturday kind of feel to it, and it's real simple with Sims. Is the book on him was well known before he arrived. Talented player, versatile player, a lot of experience at the college level. That knock on him is the turnovers. Like, that is what had to be avoided. And not only were they not avoided, but they occurred, in a public setting, a big, a pretty good sized crowd. So it's drawn quite a bit of criticism on the message board, social media, that sort of thing. So yeah, as you mentioned, like, Sam Leavitt is not just not losing the job, but he's essentially earning it. So now the page turns almost to me of, okay, it really seems like Leavitt's the guy, and time is limited for that to change. Just doesn't seem likely that it's going to change. Now, is it a greater battle for who's going to be the true backup? Meaning, if Leavitt were the guy and he goes down, who's going to be QB2? Does that go to Trenton Bourguet? Does that go to Sims? How do they work Sims in? Do they have packages for him? Is it a Michael Eubank kind of situation when Taylor Kelly was the starter? Is that something that they integrate? We've made a lot of comparisons, of course, to Sam Leavitt and Taylor Kelly. So are we going to see multiple levels of a flashback to 2012, 2013 time for Sun Devil football? So the bottom line for me is it's encouraging, again, that the position's really being won and not just defaulted to the guy that makes the least mistakes, not that game manager kind of stuff. So hopefully there's some excitement out of the quarterback position, because there's a lot of potential elsewhere on offense, but that's where it all begins.
Yeah, so you'll be hearing from Sam Leavitt after his Saturday performance a little bit later on here in the show. But, of course, the job is not official as of yet. As of this recording, there are still 2 more big scrimmages for the Sun Devils on the practice slate that could play a big role. But as of right now, you're looking at Sam Leavitt, a guy who's taken the first team reps with the offense in 11 of the 12 fall camp sessions so far. That's pretty much a pretty good indicator, as well as just the on-field play. And so it'll be interesting to track exactly kind of what you said, Joe, like how that depth chart kind of pans out a little bit. Trent Bourguet's been solid. You know what you're going to get with Trent, but it's going to, I think right now, you can pencil in Sam Leavitt taking that first snap. Fall goes to plan on August 31st. Moving on to running back, where there's really not a whole lot of drama, and never has really been. It's just a matter of exactly how the guys behind Camp Scadaboo are going to kind of file in. And I think right now we've seen over the last week or so, Alton McCaskill's really making some ground. He's feeling comfortable. Got off, and kind of purposely was kind of used slow. It was seeing a lot of run with the third team offense, but he's been mixing in with the ones along with Carlos Brooks, who looks leaner, looks quicker, making some plays as a receiver as well, getting his heft out there. But McCaskill has a bit of like Le'Veon Bell to him a little bit, and like in terms of like the patience factor of just kind of letting things develop in front of him and then shooting the gap, because he has great quickness. Kyson Brown, I would love to see him get 50, 75 touches at least this season, even though it is a pretty crowded backfield. He has looked pretty phenomenal as well. Jason Brown continuing to work with the third team, but right now running back, you know who your starter is, but it's going to be interesting to see, kind of in a good problem type of way, how the workload's divided up.
McCaskill, to me, like we talked about in the past, I think he's like that top wild card on the entire team. I mean, think about the names that have been thrown around. You mentioned Le'Veon Bell. A week ago, you mentioned Rachaad White. Hode Rubino's talked about Marion Grice. And those guys had that quality that you talked about as far as just letting things develop. I mean, both White and Grice, and at the time that Rachaad White was here, we compared him to Grice. They just had that element about him to where It didn't look like it was happening in slow motion, because that sounds derogatory, but it just seemed, things developed, but then, man, they could hit a gap. The footwork was incredible. I'll never forget the run that Marion Grice had against Arizona down in Tucson, where he just did a quick little something shift with his feet, and he was gone. Marion Grice is a guy that you'll take every day of the week. Same with Rachaad White. These are massive compliments to a guy like McCaskill, because he's done it. He did it at Houston, but it's been a few years. I mean, he had the freshman season he had. You think that guy's going to be, a bona fide day one NFL draft pick if you keep on that track, and that's still, out there as a possibility. So he's someone that nobody should be sleeping on. He could be a contributor, like we talked about. Those other two guys like Rachaad White, like Marion Grice, they played in heavy backfields, with the likes of DeMonte Trainium, with the likes of DJ Foster, Cameron Marshall. So that whole thing, if that comes back around, everything's going back to 2012 here, right? The quarterback battle, running back.
Time is a flat circle.
There you go. And that was a decent season, and the start of something special there for a few years under Todd Graham. So if that comes back around, I'd be here for it. But yeah, McCaskill is someone through this entire season I'm going to be keeping my eye on, and he's someone that maybe by the time the year's done, that he could be talked about in very high regard by the folks who may not have seen him coming.
All right, so moving on to wide receiver, I think your three starters as of right now, you provided some good health. Jordan Tyson, Xavier Guillory, Melquan Stovall. Those guys have been really taking the bulk of the one reps so far in camp. You might see maybe some shuffling with some other guys coming back from health in healthy ways over the next week or so. But obviously Tyson was held out of the scrimmage on Saturdays. If anybody who was up there saw, he should be back. He was looking all right. So Melquan Stovall has been aces out of the slot so far. But I think the real intrigue remaining in fall camp is going to be exactly how things stack up behind him. Jake Smith has really, I feel like, hitting another level. He's been one of those guys that just consistently open deep. That speed that made him the 2019 Gatorade National High School Player of the Year really on display. So I feel pretty good about him. Troy Mary came back to practice on Tuesday, had a nice touchdown in the back of the end zone, showing off that size. Malik McClain has been getting a lot of first-team reps, mixing in with the twos as well. So you have two big-bodied guys there. Now we got to talk a little bit about Derek Eusebio, the walk-on redshirt freshman from Texas. All he does is make plays. I mean, he has been whether it's Jeff Sims or Sam Leavitt, he has been just consistently getting open, finding holes in the defense, moving those chains.
And that's a spot, position where you can make an impact even if you're not a scholarship guy. And there've been a lot of precedent at ASU over the years and decades of that sort of thing. Most recently a guy like Gio Sanders, Kevin Ozier, back in those early Todd Graham days, he was a high-level contributor. You go back 20 years ago, everybody's favorite player was Moe Mutz. These things have happened. Guys can earn time, and so that's something that should not be a shock. Really interested about Malik McClain as well. I mean, that's a guy that when he came to ASU, if you remember that recruiting cycle during the transfer portal, ASU was after a few other wide receivers that didn't end up coming to ASU. Seemed like he was maybe like the third or fourth option at the time, at least in the sequence of what was being reported. But man, that guy's really showing up. He's got a big body, he can block, he can catch the ball, a huge frame, so a lot to like about that. Just really encouraged to hear the things that are coming out of camp. So yeah, a lot of competition there at wide receiver, though a bit of a pecking order does seem to be developed here. But you've got 5 or 6 guys, maybe more, that can contribute when they're called upon. Yeah,
and I think you have a position group that is able to absorb guys who get dinged up or tweak an ankle or something along those lines. And I think that you have seen throughout the spring and into fall camp that the chemistry between the presumed QB1 and Sam Leavitt and the presumed wide receiver 1 and Jordan Tyson has been really fun to watch develop and really blossom into some big-time plays. And I think that Tyson's on the precipice of stardom. And it's a pretty interesting deep group. So obviously we saw the absolute, maybe the worst Sun Devil passing game, just with all ravaged by injuries, and you have your running back throwing touchdown passes out there.
I mean, like that UCLA game where your best pass plays were PIs, like when Jalen Conyers was throwing the ball, and it was just But you're moving down the field because you're getting all these penalties. Like that's your pass game. Yeah, there's literally nowhere but up for this son of a pass game to go.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think those three guys that have been running with the ones for the majority of fall camp. But there could be some late surge. Troy O'Meary's able to stay healthy. He can make a run there. Wouldn't take my eye off Malik McClain and also Zechariah Sample, the true freshman. We've been mixing in more and more as he gets more comfortable. That speed is something that pretty special. So there might be some. Maybe he's not necessarily in the too deep, but there might be some specific uses for him this season. At tight end, I think right now we're starting to see Shimon Mateer start to take a hold of that job. Now, all three of the top tight ends in Marqueston Douglas and Cameron Harpole have been mixing in. There are a lot of packages in which there are multiple tight ends on the field, but as we talked about in some of our preview episodes, Mateer has, I think, the highest ceiling of this group, and anybody who was at the scrimmage on Saturday saw him make that wicked one-handed catch in the corner of the end zone from Sam Leavitt for a score. I think things are starting to fall into place that Mateer is going to be your tight end one.
Yeah, I mean that if you weren't up there, like I wasn't up there, but the video, Son of Athletics did a great job catching that on video. It was an awesome grab that he made, and man, I mean the individual Mateer's got a background, like he came here for a purpose, and he has that. But sometimes it just takes like one key play, during the preseason to really get some momentum going. And so he's someone that I've been high on just because the numbers add up. I mean, he did it. He put it on the field. He had 5 touchdown catches with Cincinnati last year to lead the team. So, because with ASU in the transfer portal, they have a lot of guys that are kind of based on potential, possibility. Hey, they were a top-tier recruit, maybe not getting a lot of playing time. Mateer is one that's a little bit different direction, again, where he's putting it on the field. So, I really like the group that they have, and they're going to use them all, and they bring some different things. And you got a guy like Harpole that's playing kind of above what was expected of him, being a pleasant surprise. So you got a lot of competition and guys getting after it. But yeah, I would certainly expect that Mateer is the most productive, like receptions, touchdown catches wise over the course of the season. But the others are going to contribute.
All right, so moving on to the offensive line. 4 of the 5 jobs, I think, at this point are pretty solidly locked up. As we talked about over the last couple of weeks, you got Emmett Boley pretty entrenched there at the left tackle spot, Ben Coleman and Lee Fatanu at left guard and center, respectively, Maxi Hanachor at right tackle. Now, one thing that has been going on throughout the entirety of fall camp is a rotation at right guard between the veteran Cade Briggs and the sophomore Sean Na'a. Now, each time that one of the guys has been at that position, the other guy has been the second team center. Na'a saw a lot of playing time in the spring at center, so perhaps he's maybe being groomed as the heir apparent for Lee Fatanu at the middle of the Sun Devil offensive line in the future. But I think that battle's been ongoing. They've even rotated it over the last couple of days, so that battle could be something to keep an eye on. I think it's the lone unsettled spot at this point.
Yeah, and I'll be eager to see how that pans out. A guy like Na'a, technically, he could still redshirt. If he were to not have that job, you could have him in an emergency situation if you wanted to be strategic like that. Not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that's on the table. They both got a wealth of experience last year. I would have thought that Na'a would be kind of like one of those shoe-in starters, largely because he was basically a full-time starter from the day he entered the lineup last year, but last year's offensive line was kind of a nightmare. So as you turn the page toward 2024, it is a good battle to have. They're, like, again, both Briggs and Na'a are ones that got quite a bit of playing time last year. So we'll see how that turns out. The silver lining that I've mentioned on a few occasions of having just that chaos going on the offensive line last year is you got a lot of guys playing time, a lot of guys starting experience, ones that probably would not have even seen the field, let alone the starting lineup last year if health had been there in the first place. So again, when you move a year ahead, that can help you as long as everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, and so if you head over to the Speak of the Devils YouTube or Instagram or Facebook pages, you'll see an interview that I did with Sean Na'a after yesterday's practice. He's also, despite his young age, a member of the Pat Tillman Leadership Council, and it sounds like this is a real healthy competition where even though those guys are battling it out there, a really good chemistry and rapport along that offensive line. So we'll see over the coming 10 days or so before the game week really truly gets underway, who emerges and finally gets that stranglehold on that right guard job, or perhaps maybe it says something a little bit more flexible as we get into the flows of the season. Right now, though, before we dive into the defense, is a good time to bring a conversation that we had with quarterback Sam Leavitt after his strong performance at the Camp Tontozona scrimmage.
How did you feel about your own game today, obviously kind of growing into the scrimmage and more as time went on? Do you feel like you did a good job for the standard you kind of stuff for yourself before everything started?
Yeah, I mean, that first drive, ball slipped out of my hand. That was annoying. But shake back from that. Played well the rest of the scrimmage. Obviously won a couple reads back, a couple of protection checks. You're always going to have plays like that. But overall, I feel like I played well. I was happy how the 2-minute came out at the end and on a good note. So, always gonna be able to get back to work, but never satisfied.
Some receivers made some big plays for you today. Obviously, May, you're in the end zone over there. Malik McClain had some big catches as well in traffic. What do you make about the confidence you have in your guys when you're making some reads and you might know it's a little bit tight, but you want to throw it back?
Yeah, put the ball up and let them go make a play because, they're all great players. That's why we recruited them, and I got to see them every single day in routes on air and one-on-ones, and we got to see those balls get completed all the time. So it's nothing that on game day or out here in a 11-on-11 situation where I'm not expecting them to come down with the ball. So it's just reps and practicing with them and seeing how they play.
What individually do you feel like you have to go and change now or have to improve on over the next couple of weeks before the season starts?
Just getting quicker reads, quicker to my back. There's a couple times where I should have came to my back, get off the first reads a little faster. I'm sitting on them a little bit too long. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. We'll go watch film and decide after as well.
What's the mental process for just getting putting the initial turnover behind you to have a strong day?
Yeah, it actually made me a little excited. Like, okay, it made me a little fiery. So I got my guys juiced up, ready to go. Got the nerves out, and I was like, bet, let's go, come on. So I was kind of excited that happened. Obviously, you don't want it to in the moment, but had a good shake back, and our team responded well.
Do you feel you separated yourself a little bit from the rest of the group as the main guy?
I always feel like I'm the better player. That should be how every single player feels innately. I'm going to go talk to the coaches and we'll figure it out. It's nothing I'm worried about. Just going to keep getting better and we'll see where it goes from there.
Coach said you had a good day. How good did you feel out there? What are the things you liked about what you did out there?
I thought I responded well after the first series. Missed a couple deep balls that I really wish I would have had back, and then was able to make some plays at the end of the game and be smart with the ball in the second half and just be able to respond, because stuff's going to happen in the game and it's all about how you bounce back. You can't let the last play impact you on the next one. So I was really happy about that.
How much do you think you guys have grown as a team in these last 5 days? How much do you guys come together? How much have you grown as a leader?
Yeah, it's just when you sleep in a cabin with 10 guys and just joke around at night and you're able to really understand who they are as individuals in every facet of life, because you can only get certain aspects of people when you go hang out. They might be in a good mood, so you catch them in a bad mood after practice and you get to spend the day with them, so you kind of get to know them, and then on the field you're able to see that face, and it's a face that you've seen all the time, and when you're down you've seen, so you're able to come back and look at them and really demand more and expect more out of them, and they're going to return the favor. So we've grown a lot, and I'm super excited to see how much more we can grow.
How was the hike last night?
Oh, it was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm not a big hiker, but being with the team, we were playing a bunch of music, so that was a lot of fun. And on the way down, I was going a little fast, so that was my favorite part.
So as a member of the Pat Tillman Leadership Council, even as a newcomer, how do you see kind of your growth as a leader since you've gone to Tempe, and how the guys have really kind of responded to you now that you're kind of taking in the driver's seat of QB1?
Yeah, spring ball, for me was I was coming at people too harsh. I was too uptight, like I said last time. So I was bringing down on other people, and going into fall camp, me and Dilly talked about it a bunch, and I heard him say it in the media as well. So when you bring something up in the media, that makes it a bigger emphasis for me. So just being able to talk to people better and find out who responds in different ways. My center might respond to me different than my receiver, because they might be a little bit more prima donna. So just understanding that and coming at people and building the relationships, and that's how you can progress from there.
What did it mean to you to be named to the council?
It means a lot, especially coming in from December, because it shows my work ethic. How much I care for the game and care for people. Even in spring, I wouldn't say I was the best teammate, but I was trying to do everything I could as an individual and player, to enhance the team. But it was pretty special to hear.
You talked yesterday about how consistency you think is going to be one of the deciding factors in determining that QB1 spot. And Kenny's talked a lot about how you've overcome adversity a couple days ago and then today in the scrimmage as well. What are some other aspects of your game you think are consistent that you've kind of separated yourself in that regard?
Yeah, as a quarterback at any level, consistency is the main thing, especially on our team when you got players around you. All you got to do is get the ball in their hands and let them go make a play. I don't have to be a superstar. I don't have to be Superman out there. It's what Scat told me today. So it kind of let me relax and just go play my game and get the ball to my playmakers and let them go play.
When you do have to kind of overcome adversity and things, does that kind of give you a little extra push or kind of feeling to do better if you have to overcome something at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, there's two different ways you can think about it. One, you can think, okay, I have to go make up a special play to go make that up, right? Or you can come back and say, let's just put a good drive together and slowly get back into it. And that's what I did, and that's what I was super happy about. When put together a good drive, and the O-line was, playing lights out today, on all the 3rd and short and 4th and shorts, we got it, and that's big time. That's what we're going to need on game day. So I'm super proud of them on that aspect.
You talked about, scamming and counting some of the weapons you have around you. How comforting is it to know that you've got guys that can get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, makes all the difference in the world, I got to sit back on 3rd and 2 and let my running back go make a play. So let the O-line get beat up, and I'm just looking at the sideline for the next play. So, it makes all the difference in the world, and I'm just super blessed to play on this team.
Seems like you guys might be a run-first offense. Are you okay with that?
I wouldn't necessarily say we're a run-first offense. I feel like we air the ball out a lot, but whatever anybody want to classify as our offense as, I'm super happy to be in it. I love everything Arroyo and Dilly does and how they preach everything. So I couldn't ask for a better situation for me to develop into the player I want to become.
We'll take that as a no.
And apologize if anybody else has asked. It's just like, what was your favorite part of being up here? What did you like about this week? It's your first time.
Favorite part was just being around the guys in a different atmosphere. After practice, you gotta go chill in the cabins, gotta go to the creek, get food with them, and see what they're like in in their everyday lives, and because you don't get the full perspective of someone. At the football facility, because they're always trying to come with good attitude and all that. So you get to see when they're down and how they react to things.
Are you an outdoors guy?
I like to say I am now. I used to not be, but I've grown up a little bit more, and I definitely like it a lot more now.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate you.
Yes. All right, now let's dive into the Sun Devil defense, where I think also 10 of the 11 starting jobs are pretty well sewn up now. As Kenny Dillingham said, though, that this is going to be a lot of rotation, even though the guys might start the game. That there's going to be a lot of positions in which you see a lot of guys play, and we'll touch on a few of those. Starting off with the defensive line. Now, I think at defensive end, providing good help, you got Clayton Smith and Prince Dorba as your two starters. We talked about them a lot this offseason. Two guys that are pretty dynamic in terms of what they are able to do. Clayton Smith had a huge spring. He's continuing with a huge fall. Prince Dorba, of course, started off the last season with 6 sacks in 6 games. So, and by all accounts, he's really kind of leveled up a little bit. He's looked pretty good in my estimation. So, you have those two guys probably as your starters. But then behind them, you have Elijah O'Neal, who I think is really primed to kind of be a breakout, maybe even a spot starter if called upon. He's really looking good. Justin Wodtly, with his versatility inside and out, has been pretty good as well. And Jamon Tapp and Roman Petrie, I think, are two guys that could help lengthen that rotation. But I think right now you have a pretty good top 4 at the defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, with that top end, I was just kind of thinking while you were talking, what do you think? Well, I know we do like the prop bet stuff maybe next week, but I think that starting combination probably good for at least about 15 sacks at a minimum, I would say, but between them. They're capable of that. 6 to 8 range, maybe double digits. So that should be a fierce tandem. Even with BJ Green off to Colorado, a fierce tandem. And those backups, a guy like Elijah O'Neal, he had some flashes last year, but was real eager to see what he could put together. He just had a really solid JUCO career, and that might come to a head here this season. And he's mentioned Justin Wodtly. He's that utility guy that I think is going to prove to be very, very valuable for this defensive line.
Now moving on inside, CJ Fight's going to be a starter there, and I think Jacob Kangaika recently has really kind of locked up that job. He's looked really, really good, and not just as a key contributor, with his size and strength, but also in a team leadership. He's a guy who just kind of is a glue guy. He's kind of maybe a goofy Carl Bradford off the field, and then a fierce guy. Once between the lines, it just kind of turns that light on. So I think Fight and Kangaika are really going to be a force to be reckoned with. But of course, defensive tackles, it's a position that is a lot of attrition there. You need some guys in a rotation to help things go. And Jeff Clark has been every bit the kind of explosive pass rusher from the interior there. He's been making plays on a consistent basis, had a safety during the Camp T scrimmage. Zach Swanson's looked really good as well. He's earned some first-team reps at times throughout fall camp. the former Brophy player, former Texas Longhorn. He's been looking good there, and also you have JP Dieter, the Purdue transfer, who really turned things on late in spring. He's kind of helped to extend that rotation around. But I think right there, no real surprise of that Kangaika and Fight are leading the charge.
Yeah, you feel good about that entire group. CJ Fight really looking for, he had a very solid true freshman season, but really looking for him to take a major leap this year, and that's a compliment to him. And then you got a guy like Kangaika, of course, came up by 10 to become a Sun Devil. He's probably going to get the most playing time of his college career. Jeff Clark is on the back end of his career, closing things out, but he's put up some numbers over the course of the time that he's played college ball. A guy like Swanson, who got very little time, if any, at Texas in a couple years there, so probably has a chip on his shoulder, which is not terribly different than some other local transfers that came back. Maybe a guy like Tate Romney last year, didn't play much at all at BYU and got a lot of run for the Devils, was a key figure of the defense last season. So, that group, that rotation, and there's some other names as well that are still in the mix. Again, across the entire defensive line, they can go too deep, if not further, and still have some high-tier talent. When you can rotate on the defensive line, as we've talked about many times, we saw it a few years ago for ASU, you can be a real fierce team on defense.
All right, so moving on to linebacker row, I think we have the one job that is still kind of perhaps in progress. One job that's not up for grabs is Keyshawn Elliott. He is going to be the quarterback of this defense. He has looked exceptional during fall camp. He's going to be wearing the green dot with the new helmet communications that are coming to college football, just like there has been in the NFL. The question is, who's going to play alongside him? Truthfully, it might be a couple of guys, even though, so Jordan Crooks started off fall camp running with the ones, but throughout the course of the last couple of weeks, we've seen Zyrus Fiaseu get a lot of run there, as well as the Watley veteran Caleb McCullough, who's also has that versatility to play either of the linebacker positions. And all three of those guys have looked pretty good as well. You have Tate Romney providing depth as well. Kavion Thunderbird's looking like he might be making a move forward as a younger guy. But I think right now with those top four guys, with Keyshawn Elliott being an in-pen starter, those other three guys I think are going to be real interesting. Perhaps gives Brian Ward some versatility to maybe depending on the matchup or the scheme that they're facing to insert some different guys in different situations.
Yeah, you can have situational fits, just depending on what's going on at the time, and to exploit the strengths of the Sun Devil linebackers and exploit the weaknesses of the opposing offense. So yeah, very eager to see how that pans out. It's good to see that a guy like Crook immediately stepped into a high tier role. Fiaseo he's actually somebody that I thought would be like a locked in starter. I just thought that what he did at San Diego State was so impressive that would immediately carry over. That's not to say that he won't be a starter. It's not to say he won't be a high level contributor. It probably says more about the competition around him that a guy like that with that experience at a very solid program like the Aztecs, is still having to work his way into a stable position. So yeah, that position group upgraded mightily over the course of the offseason. So it's no doubt going to continue to be a heated battle. I think it's just going to be that way throughout the year. You're just going to have a bunch of dogs that are going to be out there like ready to jump off the chain when they get the chance.
All right, so moving on to the secondary, where I think as of right now, I think you have all the starting jobs pretty well sewn up, but obviously there's going to be a number of guys that are going to contribute. Perhaps starting with the one that might be the most competitive at this point at nickel, Mason Williams, the veteran who's been here for a number of years, was a recruit during the Herm Edwards era. He's been able to hold off Cole Martin, but Martin, of course, is very talented. He's been making a lot of plays. Ghost Rouser got some time at nickel earlier today. So I think right now, though, Mason Williams has continued to show that that veteran savvy, his playmaking ability is a good fit there.
Yeah, and you're seeing the upperclassmen have to work for it. A guy like Mason Williams, a guy like Caleb McCullough. These are two of the longest tenured players on the entire roster, but nothing's being handed to anybody, but they're earning it. So that's something that's very encouraging. It's good to see a guy stick it out through his career because, the list of players in the program right now that will have played their entire collegiate career at Arizona State is, a pretty small list, relatively speaking, but Mason Williams is one of those guys. So it's really encouraging to see him, continue to grow, to become a player, to be someone that's relied upon, and someone that battles through the adversity and the challenges of the depth chart battles and, potentially remaining atop that depth chart at his position as we enter the season, no matter what, even if something were to change and a guy like Cole Martin or Rouser, whomever it may be, if they happen to, take over that spot, still going to be factoring into the defense. Yeah, we talked about it multiple times, but there's a lot of that iron sharpening iron going on this defense.
Moving on to safety, this is when Kenny Dillingham made that comment of just 3 of the starting jobs locked up. I think this position group was kind of one of the. Like, I mean, come on, Kenny. Like Shamari Simmons and Xavier Alford are 2 guys you could put in pen as the starters of that group. They've both been excellent. I think Xavier Alford has been exceptional in fall camp. Maybe having the best camp of any Sun Devil defender to this point, but the depth behind them has also been impressive. Ghost Rouser was nicked up a little bit, but he's now back in the fold. He had a pick earlier today. Kamari Wilson had a pick in the scrimmage. Nice play off a ball from Jeff Sims. Montana Warren's on the leadership council, just like Sean Ah, just being a second-year player, but well-respected enough by his teammates. And so safety, as we talked about all offseason long, really no surprises here. Your 2 studs at the top with a couple of a trio of younger guys behind them that can make an impact as well.
Yeah, not terribly different from like linebacker, to where you've got a lot of competition. You've got some guys that you can kind of peg into certain positions, but if somebody slips up or if they get banged up, they're going to have someone either nipping at their heels to take their spot or just ready to fill in for them when necessary. So that position group, certainly the strongest on defense and perhaps the strongest on the entire roster.
All right, so close things out at cornerback. This might be a position where you could potentially see a move. So far throughout all fall camp, Javen Robinson and Keith Abney have run with the starting defense. LT Welch, the LSU transfer, was out for the early part of early part of fall camp. But since he's come back, I thought has been maybe the best looking corner on this team. So I would not be surprised if he makes a strong push right now. But I think right now what we've seen through all 3 of those corners is some pretty steady play and some pretty. I still think corner. I still have a lot of questions, and we can go back to our positional confidence rankings. Just because you lose your top 3 guys from a season ago, but those 3 guys I think have some potential to really make this maybe not a strength of this team, but it's certainly not a weakness. Rounding out, I think the top 4 is Rodney Bimich, who was a true freshman who was really good in spring and has continued that in fall camp with his physical play style.
Yeah, that 4-man rotation, that 2 deep, seems to be relatively set. Now, obviously, things can change over time. Welch is someone that I'm really hoping can be that stable presence. It was just so intriguing for his name to be added to the transfer portal list for ASU. Anytime you get somebody from LSU, the time you get somebody who's a 4-star recruit, I believe like a top 100 to 200, caliber overall recruit, someone that if he were to have signed with ASU on signing day, you'd be real fired up about him out of high school. When you have that sort of credential, and you just kind of chomp at the bit, hoping for that to materialize into a consistent starting cornerback, maybe an all-conference caliber performer. Obviously, he needs to take many steps to get to that point, but it's good to know that things are turning around for him a little bit. And a guy like Robinson, that's someone that he played a little bit at Washington State, not nearly like the high-caliber recruit of a guy like Welch, but someone that is coming in and doing his thing, similar with Abney. Someone that's just been steadily doing it the entire offseason. Obviously, he hasn't been at ASU too terribly long since he just started his career, last season as a freshman, but a lot of competition there. And as you mentioned, it's a group that I don't know if you necessarily need it to be a major strength in order for the defense to be successful, but you can't let it be a weakness. The Big 12, they've got a lot of teams that run the ball, but they do have some teams that can throw the ball, especially the quarterbacks that are joining the Big 12 along with Arizona State, the former Pac-12 teams. Those are probably going to be some of the best quarterbacks in the conference, and ASU will face, a few of those teams as well as the obviously the traditional Big 12 teams as well. So you got to be able to shut down that pass game if you want to be successful at the college football level.
All right, so closing things out with a look at the specialists. Now, so far through fall camp, looks like Canyon Floyd is on track to be the punter, provided things stay kind of the status quo as we've seen so far. Local prospect and showed a good boot as well. I think right now we at kicker you have still I think a competition, but we might see some separation since Camp Tontozona now through the early part of this week of camp. Ian Hershey was I think it was pretty good up at Camp Tontozona, and today we had a pretty extensive special teams session in which there was a lot of field goals kicked, at least a lot of field goals relative to what the media is able to see during the practice portions. He had a nice kick after the team tempo session, good from about 45 yards. And then both Ian Hershey and Carson Kiefer had 2 kicks each from about the mid-40s. Hershey was perfect on his attempts. Kiefer missed both of his badly wide left. So just when you're looking at that consistency, and especially with an ASU team that's probably with a lot of the defense and run game forward, A lot of close games are probably going to be on this upcoming slate, so you need a kicker you can count on. And as of right now, I think this might still be in flux, but I think right now we're starting to see maybe Hershey pull away a little bit.
Yeah, Sun Devil fans know from last year there were a couple games that were left on the table due to various special teams issues, not just the kick and punt game, but also returns and coverage as well. So as a whole, that is a general aspect of the game that folks are just looking for some improvement. And as you mentioned, you get the impression that until you see and know what this Sun Devil offense is all about, you get the impression that there will be some close games. And then obviously ASU's probably headed towards some rough weather games down the tail end stretch of that schedule, playing in Big 12 country. So kickers, whomever it may be, punters, kickers, the whole deal, they got to be ready to go.
Some of these position groups you can put down in pen, others in pencil. I think about, as we mentioned, 20 of the 22 on the offensive and defensive side, and 1 of 2 on the special teams, are still probably ongoing a little bit. So, of course, with about another week and a half of fall camp, a lot of things could change, but, we'll be here next week talking about it all. But before we let you go, a couple of good conversations with some of the some newcomers to this team, starting things off with wide receiver Malik McClain, who, as we mentioned, a very strong contributor for the Sun Devil offense.
All right, so what are your thoughts on just a Camp T experience? You've been a couple of different places in college football. How does this kind of compare to any of the camp experiences you've had?
This is amazing. The view, the vibe, everything is really nice out here at Camp T. It's kind of cool that this is a part of the Sun Devil tradition coming out here, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Why was Arizona State the right place for you?
Just everything had, I guess, kind of fallen into place coming here. Coaching, quarterbacks, I just felt like it was a home situation for me, and, I've known the coach a long time, so it was a home decision for me.
So was Dilly at Florida State the same time as you?
Yeah, he was.
So what kind of growth have you seen from, Tallahassee Dilly to Tempe Dilly?
Oh, it's crazy. He takes his job very seriously, and with that being said, from every position that he's had, he lives that position all the way to the fullest, and he does the best he does in that position. So to see him as a head coach right now is just crazy, to see him on his journey, up to this point. So it's really cool to see him mature and exceed as a football coach.
Now you've been practicing for just a couple days, but it seems to be hitting the ground running, some big plays right off the bat, and then continuing through on today. What are kind of the first vibes? Really jumps out to you most about what you've seen from these first 3 practices?
These guys, they really work hard at practice, and they push me to be better every day, literally, and they're not gonna let me slack. So, with that being said, I have to come and bring it every day, or it's a loss. I can't take a loss in any of these practices because the season coming right around the corner.
What's it like having your position coach be a Super Bowl MVP, future Hall of Famer like Hines Ward?
Oh, it's crazy. With him, he's just a sponge of information, knowledge, experience, and I also have to be a sponge just to soak all that information in because he's exactly where I want to go. He's been there, he's seen it, he's done it. So just listening to him and listening to what he's saying about certain situations, it just expands my mind as a receiver.
What's the dynamic like in that wide receiver room? It seems to be a lot of very talented guys, supporting each other, but also, competing for some jobs.
Yeah. So, we all very supportive. These guys, they want to see everybody succeed, because a positive room is better than, a negative room, and we don't have nobody selfish. These guys right here, they really support us, and they really are ready to compete.
Got your fan club already.
Man, crazy. It's crazy.
When you just getting to know this Marcus Arroyo, Kenny Dillingham offense, what really kind of jumps out in terms of, the characteristics of this offensive attack and what they like to do with the receivers?
They like to exploit everything in the defense, down from, zone schemes to, secondary, they like to exploit everything, and, they like to try stuff too. So, if a coach is willing to try something, I like that. Like me personally as a receiver, and they have their base stuff too. But these guys are really believing in this stuff, and we believe in it too.
So when you look ahead to the next few weeks of fall camp, what are the things that you really want to show this coaching staff?
That I'm just a reliable target. third down guy, come to me, be that safe bet. When the ball's in the air, you already know you're trying to get the next play because I already done caught it.
So for any AC fans that might not have seen you in action at your previous stops, what's a self-scouting report? What kind of skills are you bringing to this attack?
I like to think that I'm fast, that I'm a deep threat, and I'm strong with my hands. And I'm very good at blocking downfield. I did a lot of that last year, so there'll be a lot of explosive runs too, that I bring to the table, and just an explosive receiver.
What kind of goals have you set for yourself? What do you want to get out of this 2024 season, and what kind of things do you want to see happen to be able to call it a success?
Me personally, for myself, it's a kind of a saying, a motto: 1% better every day in football. So I feel like by the time I get to the season, I'll be where I need to be as a receiver, as a football player, to really exploit everything in the defense. And this season, just some goals, just catch everything that comes to me. Like I don't have a number, I don't have a date, time, or anything. I just make the most of my opportunities.
And finally, here's a conversation with defensive lineman Justin Wodtly.
All right, so a couple days here in Camp T. How's the experience up here in the Pines and kind of roughing it a little bit off the grid?
Man, I love it, man. It gives us an opportunity to just come out here and just be us, man. You don't got no cell service, you don't got no distractions, no anything, man. You just get to come out here every day, lock in with your brothers, man. And even the off the field aspect, man. At night we get campfires and stuff, and you really get to meet people that you otherwise wouldn't really talk to if it wasn't for the game of football, man. So that's the unique part of it, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Obviously being a guy who was here during spring versus now, how do you see your kind of comfort level in the defense? Just overall, just how much have you seen kind of strides in your game from spring to fall?
Day by day, man, just getting better and better each day, man. Getting a little bit more comfortable, learning the defense a little bit more. I got my spring ball cut a little bit short. I end up breaking my middle finger, but working back from that, man, and just getting comfortable, man. Coach Reynolds has me repping a little bit at the 5 tech and a little bit at the 3 tech, so really having to learn both positions and learn two different schemes and different ways and styles to play and stuff like that. So you really got to focus and come out here and really perfect your craft. So I'm starting to feel more comfortable, and I'm starting to get in the groove of things.
Obviously, with that injury, how did you try to, stay involved and contribute, even though you necessarily weren't going to be able to get out there in the trenches?
Yeah, man, just staying mentally locked in, taking as much notes as possible. We got a really deep D-line room, so when I'm not out there, the next guy has to be just as good as I am. So really coaching up our young guys, man, and making sure they're ready. And that's really how I stayed engaged and stayed focused for the most part.
8 practices through fall camp. How do you think things are going so far for you? How do you think this D-line's coming together?
Man, coming from, being a transfer, coming in, being able to see a different perspective, man. I done been on a 13-0 team that made it all the way to the college football playoff, man, and we got it. We got it out here, man. Everybody's flying around. Everybody's playing together. Everybody's communicating, man. Nobody's really, juiceless. Coach Regal likes to say, man, if you're juiceless, you're useless, man. So nobody really is coming out here without juice, man. So I really feel like if we keep stacking days, man, the further you get into camp, man, it gets harder and harder to come out here, man. So if we just keep staying focused and everybody keeps the main goal, I feel like we're going to be in a really good spot.
We're with the D-line coach and Deron Reynolds. His pedigree is pretty remarkable in terms of what he's been able to do in terms of developing guys for the next level and beyond. I believe he just recently helped. Was in Canton, having one of his former players put on a gold jacket. What's it like working with him?
Man, he's just a guru, man. Just a guy that you really can just rely on in any situation, man. I really just love picking his brain, man. There's no dumb questions when it comes to Coach Reynolds, man. So I just really try to use that, man. Ask all the questions I can, man, because the more knowledge you have, man, the slower the game gets. So being able to just work with a guy like that, man, it's a blessing. And just being able to, I don't know, it leaves me speechless a little bit, man. But I really love being able to come out here and perfect my craft under him every day.
So obviously Hines Ward's on this staff. I know you're a Steelers fan. You pitching Uncle Troy to maybe come out here and help the safeties a little bit?
A little bit, man. I got to talk to him a little bit, man. But, hopefully he comes out to a game. But, him and Coach Ward, they got a great relationship. So I'm sure we'll get something to happen soon.
Over the next few weeks, what do you want to show this coaching staff, and what do you want to do on this practice field to get ready for the opener against Wyoming?
Man, I'm going into year 5, man. So just try to be a vet, man. Try to be a leader out here. There's a lot of guys out here that, probably don't have a lot of you feel me, vocal confidence and stuff like that. So I want to be able to a guy that they can lean on and they can trust in and know that I have their back, man. I just want to be a leader and be a great teammate to my guys, man. And then I feel like the rest will take care of itself. We're putting in a lot of really good work out here, and I can't wait till August 31st.
What would make a successful season for you?
Successful season for me? Winning, man. You know, I'm a winner. Everything I like to do, man, I like to win. I don't care if we're out here on the football field or if we're in a diner hall playing checkers, man. I want to win all the time. So really coming out here and just doing your 111, like Coach Dilly said, man, this game's not really hard. You know, if you do your job and you trust the guy next to you to do their job, man, everything will just work itself out. So I feel like that'll be a successful thing for me, man, to just be able to come out here and trust in all my guys to do their job, and the rest will take care of itself.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our trio of Sun Devil guests, quarterback Sam Leavitt, wide receiver Malik McClain, and defensive lineman Justin Wodtly. As we mentioned, the season is coming pretty quick. A lot of new stuff's going to be dropping down, so the best way to keep up with us is on the social media side. You can follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and give me a follow on all things social at bdenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy42, and you can follow us both all the way to 100 Mile Brewing Company. Once again, a reminder, this Saturday, August 17th, starting at 3 p.m., going to probably about 5:30. We will be there. We'll have giveaways. We'll have raffles. That free parking again. That's a big thing in my book. Great food and drink if you haven't been to 100 Mile Brewery. They brew incredible beer, have great food, and, of course, that guest list, top tier all the way. Voice of the Sun Devils, Tim Healy. Sun Devil legend, Jalen Strong. Athletic Director, Graham Rossini. We'll be chatting them up, taking your questions as well. It's going to be an interactive thing, a great time. Come on out. We'd love to see each and every one of you. Also, of course, a huge thank you to our sponsors, all of whom are back for this year. Just a little peek behind the curtain of how we run our business here with Speak of the Devils. When we get to the new football season, kind of when we do our renewals with our sponsors. So we're very, very grateful that each and every one from last year has chosen to continue along with us. We have many that are long-time sponsors. It just means an entire a great deal to us. It allows us to do what we do. That list, of course, is Jones Auto Group. Parker Jones, hit him up. Here's his cell number, 602-881-8998. He wants to hear from you. He wants to take care of you if you're in the market for a new vehicle. Jones Auto Group, the only car dealership that has provided vehicles to Sun Devil student athletes via NIL arrangements. The only car dealership to do that. They're doing that. They deserve your support. Of course, devilsdigest.com. I am entering my, oh my goodness, 18th year with Hod Rubino. It all began in 2007. Ooh. So give the boss man some love. Become a subscriber at devilsdigest.com. Of course, Cactus Sports. We were out there chopping it up with store owner Troy Scoma a couple weeks ago. Gear up at Cactus Sports. Get ready for this season. Get you some grub at Burrito Express. We've seen that he's got partnerships going on with Cam Scattaboo. He's got his own signature burrito there. So get some food there, Burrito Express and Spaghetti Shack, of course, owned and operated by a former Sparky the Sun Devil. And then last but, of course, not least, Sun Devil Family Charities, our longest sponsor in terms of the one that really started it all with us about 10 years ago. You can check them out at sundevilfamily.org for ways that you can support them. And, of course, if you come out to our live event at 100 Mile Brewing Company, part of the proceeds, as Brad's mentioned, will go to Sun Devil Family Charities. So your presence, your involvement, if you want to drink a handful of beers, but of course get a safe ride home, some of that money is going to be going to our good friends at Sun Devil Family Charities. So come on out.
Also, support the good folks at homefieldapparel.com. They just dropped an amazing new Arizona State can't-miss kickoff box. Includes a crew neck, a hoodie, T-shirt, hat, a lot of good stuff. Everything you'll need for the upcoming season at homefieldapparel.com. And also be sure to drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. I think we're coming up on like 200 total reviews. I mean, we have a sterling rating. If you can get us over 200 reviews, that'd be pretty nice. We'd really appreciate it. Also appreciate you coming out this Saturday. And also make sure you tune in next week for our annual season preview and predictions roundtable. We'll tell you exactly how this 2024 season is going to unfold.